Dear friends, welcome to the Health Seeker, a special episode of our program because we want to tell you about a research that has brought important results on the effectiveness of Life 120 lifestyle. And with us we have science popularizer Adriano Panzironi. Welcome, Mr. Panzironi.
Thank you and welcome to our viewers.
Let's talk about this research. Now, what is it?
Let's say I decided to carry out this scientific study to prove the effectiveness of the Life 120 lifestyle after all the criticism I have received over the years, where critics were saying and stating that it is not possible to heal with a proper lifestyle. Well, this longitudinal observational research actually proves that.
Here you have decided then to do this study, and you have locked it up here in the book Living to 120 The Healings, a book written for hands with journalist Francesco Gianotti. And however, I want to ask you right away one very important thing. This title, The Healings, this is a word that you have really caused you a lot of criticism, a controversial word.
You are right, because actually this book was initially supposed to be called The Testimonies, but then I decided before going to print to call it The Healings, because actually the results that we got with this observational study makes us understand that it really is about healings. So it is important, in my opinion, to call a spade and not to be afraid instead of just making claims so that we are not criticized.
Look, you mentioned that it is important to call this book Healings. However, I think it is also important to understand what healings mean to you.
Certainly the word healings needs to be contextualized because there are pathologies that can hardly be called healed. For example, if we take the case of cancer, obviously dogmatic medicine tells us that one can only call a person with cancer cured if after 5 years there are still no cancer cells present. In fact, for this reason, even in this study, we did not want to include this pathology. In reality, however, there are so many other pathologies that can be called cured, because upon discontinuation of those foods that I consider to be real poisons, people become healthy again to such an extent that they no longer suffer from that pathology. So it is correct to call these problem resolutions as true healings that obviously will be able to return these pathologies again where the person goes back to eating what are the typical dishes from Diamia and Rania, such as bread, pasta, pizza, potatoes, rice and legumes.
And cause these pathologies. Look, let's talk right away then about this court. The court means that you have selected 1,000 people. We can see right away the first slide to see how this court is composed of. 565 are women, 435 are men. And what do you want to tell us? How were these 1,000 people selected?
These people are a good part, all the witnesses who over the years have come to the Health Seeker, to our program. And then last year I realized, actually at the turn of this year and last year, Panzironi come to dinner with us. It was this tour that I did all over Italy where I met more than 5,000 people who follow the Life 120 lifestyle. And out of those, we decided to include 1,000 people who were suffering from at least 3 diseases.
Now, I would like to see a new slide on the overall pathologies. Basically, these 1,000 people stated that they had 9,681 pathologies. Subsequently to the change of lifestyle with Life 127,393 are no longer present. So they have resolved these pathologies. 1,818 have been improved, and only 470 have not had improvement.
We are talking about really very important percentages. We are talking about real cures here. We are talking about 7,000 and more diseases that this court of 1,000 people have declared that they no longer suffer, and another 15–20% that have greatly improved them. Only a 3–4% have kept the pathology as it was.
We continue to talk just about pathology. However, let's go and look at the average per subject. Then always before the Life 120 lifestyle, there was an average of 9.7 pathologies or disorders per subject. Instead, later we came to 0.47 average of pathology resolution.
This figure gives us pause because it actually doesn't look like it, but we suffer from so many between ailments and pathologies. So the average is about 9 of these people from the court, and well, it means that after they embarked on the Life 120 lifestyle, actually only 1 in 2 people maintained one of the 9 pathologies they suffered from.
Let's talk about pathologies. Let's also talk at this point about drug administration. Initially, we see the slide, 2,250 drugs were taken by our court complex. Subsequently, to Life 120 lifestyle, 84% of the drugs have been taken off, 8% of the drugs have been reduced, and the remaining 8% are unchanged.
This is another extraordinary piece of data because it shows that a correct lifestyle, in this case Life 120, based on the right diet, right supplementation and right physical activity, is really able to make people stop medication. So these people went to their doctor to be given medication, and then as a result of taking the Life 120 lifestyle, the same doctor took off these medications. So I think it is the most interesting response against that dogmatic medicine that instead prefers to essentially treat diseases only with drugs.
Here is another interesting answer. Let's look at the drugs taken off per subject. Then in the court, 783 people were using more than one drug, and after initiating to Life 120 lifestyle, 527 subjects took off all the drugs. 229 took off the drugs partially, and 27 did not take off, so they remained unchanged.
We are talking about 27 people who did not take off medication out of 1,000. We are talking about 2.7%. So really an impressive percentage.
These data are really resounding what we read and what we got with this longitudinal observational research. But what should they teach this medicine that, as you call dogmatic?
There is a different path of treatment that you cannot address people's pathology and health just by administering drugs, but let your patient know that proper nutrition is the first therapeutic weapon. Then if ever it is not enough, then you can also administer drugs, but don't do the opposite. So really this longitudinal observational study will teach these doctors that a different path is possible, an integrated path. That can really bring millions of Italians back to health. If we remember these percentages that I call almost Bulgarian, that is extraordinary results, and we wanted to represent them in the Italian population, we would have the 90% reduction in sales from drugs in Italy, we would have the 90% reduction in the sick industry, and we would have millions of healthier and longer lived people.
I want to mention that all these data that we said, the cards, the 1,000 cards of our court are inside this book, written 4 hands with our journalist Francesco Gianotti, obviously together with Adriano Panzironi. However, I also want to say another very important thing, that all the data in our possession, the telephone records that were made to make this longitudinal observational study, are obviously protected thanks to Life 120. So whoever wants can contact, obviously, the competent authorities and know, obviously, all the data. I thank you, Mr. Panzironi, for doing also this very important new work that I recommend, obviously, to everybody. I thank you. Thank those who followed us from home, and obviously see you soon with the Health Seeker. Thank you.